What is your promise? Why are you in business? How do you expect to grow?
This is The Hook, a show focused on branding, marketing, and business development.
You brand to inspire, not to sell.
Jason Arcemont, the marketing maverick, gives expertise to business owners, serial entrepreneurs, and anyone interested in building a stronger company brand.
Creating a brand is like telling a story. You've got one shot to say it all.
When your marketing works, you've got them on the hook.
The radio show is called The Hook. Well, that's what the voice guy just said.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know that. My name is Josh, along with the Marketing Maverick. This is Jason Arcemont. We call the show The Hook because we really want to reel you in. Actually, it's more of the business owner wanting to reel in a client.
Yeah,
setting
the
the hook
prospects.
on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one moment where you hook someone in with a sales pitch maybe, or maybe an idea of how you could expand your business, or maybe work it more efficiently, run it more efficiently.
I like it.
You like
I like
I hope
it.
you like
it. Sounds
it.
good, man.
I'm trying to recap what you've been telling me for the past 10 months we've been doing this show. And again, that is the marketing maverick, Jason Arcemont, who got his name because he's a real maverick. It doesn't have anything to do with being a cowboy.
No, not a
Cowboy
cowboy.
and maverick don't always go together because Top Gun.
I think Top Gun when I think of Maverick, which is the reason why I held on to the nickname. I was
Right?
like, hey, that's all right. I'll take that one.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make any more Top Gun, just to let you know.
They might. I could see them bringing that back, man. Just think of the marketing. All they had to do is play the opening song on a credit, little preview. People would be hooked, man. They'd be hooked.
Goose is dead, bro.
Oh, Goose's son. It'll be like Apollo Creed, right? Goose's son is
Right.
back. He's flying. Maverick's the new trainer.
I think that he was single when he died. Just saying.
Ugh.
All right, this is being brought to you by Brightbox Brand Marketing, which we know a lot about because that's where we work every single day.
Our full-service brand marketing firm. We can help anything from marketing strategy to implementation through web, video, public relations, content management, social media.
I see you looking up at the ceiling. You're
I'm
like,
like,
what
I got to
do we
list
do again?
It's a lot of bullet points, but basically a full-service brand marketing firm for all of your marketing, branding needs. Check us out at brightboxonline.com.
Yep, that's where we are. And we're also at thehookradio.com. If you missed the episode this past week, we had Paul Miller on.
Yeah.
And Paul was fantastic. Week before that, Ryan Buck was on. So if you want to recap some of those episodes, they're up on the website, thehookradio.com, as well as our contact form. You can say hi to us and plenty other services, a way to reach out to any one of the branches that we are able to kind of extend to you, which it could be printing. It could be something that's exhibit related or
HR outsourcing
man,
issues,
There's a lot of stuff.
corporate training. I mean, you name it.
Sometimes I think we do too much, and then Jason says, don't ever say that again.
Don't ever say, I got a new idea. I got a new concept. We're going to do a radio show.
Oh, great.
Yeah, well, we got a great show today, man. We've got Ryan Holiday is going to be on the phone with us today. He's actually in Austin, so he won't be here in studio. But Ryan is an American author, marketer, entrepreneur. He is a media strategist and the former director of marketing for American Apparel. I think he's also an editor or a columnist at large for the New York Observer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he's a
Dude.
very interesting guy. And I don't know if you've done any research on him, Josh, but
I haven't just yet.
well, once you dig into, so his books are fascinating. He's a phenomenal writer. And then the things he's done as a marketing professional, kind of PR guy, from the early days, from his internship. Well, I'm not going to get into all of it. You guys stick around. You're going to want to hear this interview. His history and some of the things that he was a part of from his early days with Tucker Max is going to, it's pretty exciting stuff, man.
Do
You're
you
going to
know,
want to see that.
did you ever read any of Tucker Max's stuff back in the day?
I didn't ever read. I mean, I think I was probably. No, I didn't ever read it all in its entirety, but the media hype around it, I definitely was involved in.
Yeah.
I think I was probably maybe just a little young to be maybe interested in the book at the time.
Man.
I was probably just getting out of school, honestly.
Hilarious things came from that.
Yeah.
So it's worth doing some research.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it's a little offensive.
Well, we're going to hear about how Ryan took that and turned it into just an unbelievable PR stunt.
But it also says right here that he advises best-selling authors like Tim Ferriss.
Well, I think once
Tony
you know how to
Robbins?
fool the system, right, then you can maybe fool the system in a more ethical way? We're going to find out.
Okay.
I'm curious to see where he's at now professionally, because he does. He advises authors and folks still. He's still obviously writing. His books are unbelievable. Ego is the Enemy is his latest book. You got to check that out. If you're at a computer, go check that out now and get kind of a heads up. But you're going to want to stick around and tune in for that interview for sure. Man, it's been crazy. How do you keep up with your calendar? Are you just a calendar on your phone, or how do you do your time management? I'm curious.
No, a lot of times what I do is I have our Google Calendar, because we're all shared into each other's calendars.
Yeah.
So I'll use the one on my computer, but it's also locked into my phone, as well as my family calendar, which is on an app called Cozy, C-O-Z-I.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we put all our family things on there, because we can add all the things that the kids are doing, but we can also make a grocery list.
Oh.
And
okay.
Yeah, you can keep photos, and there's a ton of things that you can do, and it's free, or you can buy the paid version of it. So it's all integrated into my phone app to where I can look at everything going on.
All
Google
the different,
Calendar, yeah, so I can see everything that's happening all in one place.
Yeah,
it gets a little crazy, because I'm looking at what you're doing tomorrow,
right,
as well as what I'm doing tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's tough keeping up with 3 or 4, 5, 10 different people's calendars, well as your own. You know, I'm always all over the place. I live by a calendar, so I'm always curious. I don't think I'd ever asked you. I was interested to hear how you're keeping up with that.
Don't look at my calendar, please.
I'm going to go check it out right now and be on Google for the rest of the show. Man, are you starting to hear buzz about Super Bowl yet? I feel like I'm starting to hear people talk about it. Some of the parties and things are
some
events.
of that is brought on by me, because we talked about whenever I got into radio in Houston in 2002. So I think it was was it 2004 that we had the Super Bowl? 2005. I don't remember. I think it was 2004. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Whenever we had the Super Bowl come to town, I didn't realize how many Super Bowl parties and how much media was surrounded by what was happening here. Because you have Radio Row, which they do. There's a ton of people that come through for their charity organizations, or they're doing promo opportunities for different companies. Like, Tide might bring in Carl Lewis to talk about something that he's got going on.
He's been on the show before.
Yes, he has.
Just FYI.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different people that are going to be in town, and the parties that surround it. I have some epic stories from the parties.
Some of your stories were blowing me away, but I just couldn't believe you were saying so many athletes and entertainers and musicians come in and have a Super Bowl party in the
they have
city
their own events.
Full-on events.
Champs in Uptown Park is going to have like 3, 4, 5 different parties every night where you pay to come in. Wow. And I think that Ricky Williams was doing a party there the night I went. Dante Culpepper was there, which he had a pepper with diamonds all around, like a huge pepper that was on. It was a necklace that he had. They call me Peppa. It was a pendant on that necklace.
Wow.
And so all of these different celebrities going over there, and they were playing video games. And so they were just, it was something, I guess, sponsored by a video game company for them to go over there.
I just can't. I see all this money. And so some of these people are obviously blowing money. They're just having a good time. But then you look at some of the organization or the companies, the restaurants, some of the venues, some of like Tide, if they were to do something. I mean, I can't help but think of like the amount of money they spend and then just going, man, what's really the ROI? Like, are they really making money? Are they selling product? Or is it just brand awareness? I mean,
I don't feel like some of them are. I really don't. Especially whenever you have people going through Radio Row talking about what they're trying to do. I think that people forget about that a lot. Now, the actual parties that you get into, because if it's sponsored by a game, a new game coming out like Madden 2017, then you want people to be there to see what the new functionality of the game is, and they're going to go buy it. They'll probably buy it anyway, though.
And I guess there's a ripple effect. I mean, I just watched that 30 for 30 documentary with Sonny. What's his name? Vaccaro? Yeah. Did you ever watch that one with
I haven't
Nike?
seen that one.
He basically started these like kind of college prep high school basketball tournaments, and then Nike would sponsor those tournaments, and then Nike would control what coaches from colleges could come into the tournaments and kind of watch and scout, the best of the best talent, and then they would put Nike shoes on everyone. It blew up. Sonny signed Michael Jordan out of that for the first big shoe promo deal. And it just took Nike from like, oh man, it was like a 300% increase in sales over like 3 years. Wow. Something crazy. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then when they did the same thing, whenever they signed not LeBron James, it was
Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, they signed Kobe Bryant. It went up like another 300-400%. I mean, it's just like So I know it's possible. I guess just most of our clients, we aren't dealing with that kind of volume or maybe those kind of budgets to say, hey, we're going to throw an event. I don't care if it's $300,000. This event, we want to change things. Normally it's, our clients are, hey, we've got $1,000 and then we're trying to make the most of it. Yeah.
I mean, we did have a client the other day that said, hey, I want a celebrity endorser. And I said, so what kind of endorser are you looking for? Well, like J.J. Watt. Okay. All right. Let's try somebody else.
Josh is laughing because we know the budget for the client.
Yeah.
And, we're just so I think it's kind of like, sure, could we blow the entire marketing budget on one event or on one endorsement? Or do we need to spread that out to have some type of consistency with the marketing plan? And
So are we going to talk more about that in the business tip?
Yeah, let's talk. I got a couple things. We're going to talk maybe a couple things. We'll cover two different points.
We've got to take a break right now because we're running a little bit long. Okay, more of The Hook. You got that on the way next.
It's 4 a.m. and I just got home to my motel room, so I picked up the phone. Figured you'd like to hear about the day I had.
The Hook Radio each and every Saturday right here on 950. My name is Josh, along with the marketing maverick. His name, Jason Arcemont. Google search him. See if you can find anything. I mean, there's nothing
bad.
Okay.
It's good. Yeah, it's an easy search. Arcemont.
TheHookRadio.com is where you find us online also. And this being brought to you by OnToBoxTraining.com. We're going to get to our business tip next, but we got to tell you about OnToBox Training.
Yeah, absolutely. OnToBox Training is our newest box company. It's our corporate training group. This is where we've been really successful in helping companies establish workflow processes where we come in with kind of this auditing, this proprietary auditing process that we go through to help you establish your workflow, your people, the right people in the right seats on the bus, kind of a deal. We do sales training using the neuroscience of the 7 triggers to yes. We do leadership development, all kinds of stuff. But those are kind of our 3 main areas: operation, sales, and leadership.
Okay.
So, go check us out, ontoboxtraining.com.
Okay. Now time for that business tip. What are we talking about today? Are we talking about events?
I had something else planned, but so we were talking about events. So I figured I'll wrap that up because I know I'm going to get people. I mean, we have them all the time. Clients are like, oh, let's do a big event.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like they're not even 100% sure what they want out of it, except I think a lot of times they know they're going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess maybe just kind of running through a few things. If you're going to do a big event, make sure you understand your goal. Like, it can't just be, let's have a big event with a bunch of people to show up. I mean, are we trying to reach a bigger audience, a new type of audience? Are we trying to reach existing clients? Is it just a retention event? Are we trying to actually sell product? Are we looking for additional endorsements? So really make sure you define and you work with either your team or your outside team on understanding what that objective for the event is. It can't just be, it can be just to throw a party if you just want to blow money, but I'm kind of an ROI guy, return on investment. So make sure you always understand the goal and you establish that. I would also look at working events within events work better, right?
Okay, what's that mean?
So that's similar to Super Bowl, right? You're already leveraging kind of a momentum of Super Bowl. So that's why everybody's coming here and throwing parties, is because everyone's already expecting to be having parties that whole week. It's going to be huge. So look for maybe like a 5K or a 10K. Maybe there's a race going on, right? And then you could throw an event around that same time. Inviting the runners if you're trying to sell to runners or people in the athletic community, so that you're capitalizing on an event that's already taking place. So partnering with other groups, other associations, look at calendars of your industry or around the industry that you want to target. It can help a lot. We do this a lot with OTC, even Offshore Technology Conference. Those clients of ours who maybe they don't get a booth because they weren't on the waiting list or they got bumped from the waiting list, or they just don't want to spend the money on renting a booth just to get people in there. So we'll throw an event outside of the show at a hotel or a restaurant or whatever, and we invite everybody, but everybody's already in like the OTC mentality. Everybody's going to the hall. They're going to be there late in the evening. So kind of an event within an event, that's one way to help leverage maximum attendance.
Well, the other thing, too, is that with OTC, you have everybody that you need to be in front of all in one place and captive.
Yeah.
So, getting a party and having everybody attend that's already here for OTC, that's huge.
Yeah.
I know that Walton & Johnson did one a few years ago that it's a big crawfish boil. I think that this company, I don't remember what the company is, but they do it. And Walton & Johnson went out. And they had thousands of people.
Yeah.
Because they're all here already. They all want to go out. They want to get away from the exhibits and go and hang out and have a good time.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it. I know and events, and look at events could also be like a holiday. So that's why you see a lot of people do them around, the Christmas, Thanksgiving, holiday season. People are already expecting to be going out. They're kind of in the season of that. So partner with events where you can. Another big one is integrate technology. I know a lot of people don't do this or they haven't capitalized on this yet, but especially if you're appealing to a younger audience, those millennials, maybe a little bit older even now, if you can integrate, GPS tracking, if you can integrate, video, Twitter, if you can have real-time access, social access to what you're doing, if you can stream the event somehow, if you're going to have somebody up speaking, make sure that there's a web connection so they can kind of view it from another portal. I think that's huge. Make it feel like it's a little bit more of an established presentation than maybe just somebody standing up at the front of the bar. And then really partner with some experts. Brightbox does this. Our events company Showbox does this a lot. And so often I see folks come to us and they get budgets and they want to hey, can you help with catering? Can you help with decor and make sure there's a theme and do the invitations and help trying to draw the people in and help us identify a charity that we can maybe connect with. And we give them the budgets and then they don't do it. And then they end up throwing an event and they come back and they're like, yeah, it was just another one of those typical parties where, some of our current clients showed up, but mainly most of our vendors showed up and we just gave everybody free drinks.
Yeah.
And so there was really no objective. They kind of spent maybe $5,000 and met zero ROI, where they could have spent maybe $10,000 and actually achieved something measurable. And so, that's why I say, and you don't have to have those kind of dollars, and maybe you've got $50,000 to $100,000, but regardless, I always advise that you partner with some experts, even when we do our own parties. Tammy Dow, she's been on the program. Well, she's had some folks on the program. Spot on. She's great with those parties, especially interloop parties. She's kind of a who's who. She knows everybody. So even when Brightbox, we do our own PR. We've got our own social media folks. I still partner with an outside rep to help gain some leverage, and they kind of help look at your event with some different eyes, and just say, well, Jason, I hear that's what you're wanting to do, but hey, maybe I could add a little bit more value over here. And it's not that she's expensive or it costs a great deal amount more money, but it's just it's well worth it. So it's something that we even practice, folks. So if I'm telling you to get with a partner, you should definitely do it. And then, I guess really the bottom line here with these events is that they're not cheap. I mean, usually, I guess you could do an event kind of on a shoestring and maybe it'll be successful, but it's going to cost money to create an experience. And that's what true events do. That's what draws somebody back for an annual event. Think about that. Think about hosting an event as if you were going to do it every year. So if you're going to throw in a one-time event, think about, okay, what can we do in this one time that people are going to be asking about this event this time next year, right? So how can you make it memorable? How can you turn it into an experience? We all know those companies who throw that annual event and nobody is going to miss that party, right? Nobody's going to miss that event that X company throws because they have the best bar, they have the best entertainment, they bring out a band, there's always a game, there's some kind of interaction with the company that's there. And that's really what you got to think. You got to think about taking this event to the next level, making an experience, but that usually costs money. And so if you're not willing to spend the money to create an experience, then I would just say, let's look at some other marketing avenues.
And on a smaller scale, just thinking about events in general, the happy hour that Staging Solutions does is fantastic because it is like an event. They do Thirsty Thursdays, and I don't remember if it's the second or the third Thursday they do.
I think is it Thirsty Third, or is it Thirsty
Third Thursday? That's it.
Yeah,
okay, so there you go.
3 T's. Yeah.
So Thirsty Third Thursday and Staging Solutions are a fantastic company, and they're doing a lot with the Super Bowl. So they build a lot of the sets. Whenever the Super Bowl's coming to town, or the different parties that are, they did the Maxim party whenever the Super Bowl was in town.
I heard that they did those big the footballs.
Yep.
Did they do those with the LEDs around them that you see out by the airport and stuff?
Correct.
Yeah,
all the footballs that you see around town announcing when the Super Bowl is going to be here, that was all Staging Solutions. You kind of wonder that sometimes. Well, who put that up?
Yeah.
Who commissioned that?
Who got that gig?
Yeah, Staging Solutions, they do a fantastic job. And they do their Thirsty Third Thursday where they just have people come out. It's a networking thing. You get to see what they do. There are people working sometimes. You can see what they're working on because they do a lot of digital editing with with it's CAD, right? AutoCAD or
Yeah, they do 3D rendering. They've always got some cool model that they're doing. But again, though, the reason why theirs works is because it really is an experience. Their office is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's spacious. They've got a nice little outside patio area where they typically serve food, and they've got that bar area, and then they've even got upstairs. They bring somebody in to do karaoke or DJ. Like there's always something going on. And you're right, they don't spend a ton of money, but I'm sure they're spending some money every month. I mean, just the food and drinks alone, they do it right.
They have sushi, bro. Come on.
Oh, did they? Oh, man, I must have missed that.
They for sure had sushi.
Josh, they absolutely had sushi.
I think you got there 5 minutes behind me. So
I got
you didn't
brisket.
Get any of that.
I got a brisket sandwich or something, but it was great.
They make it a really cool experience where you have fun. You meet everybody there. I know that we met the owner.
Yeah,
he's just hanging out.
Yeah,
chatting
hanging
with
out,
everybody.
having a drink, and then they'll show you around the place, and it really did engage. And even as somebody that does kind of has a company with some similar attributes, I found myself saying, man, I'd really like to work with these guys, because their folks are working late. They're working on some cool renderings. They got cool projects. They do a really phenomenal job.
Showing their latest project. If you go to Vimeo, you can actually see some of their videos of some of the things they've
the Toyota
created.
project, right?
I don't think it was Toyota. It was Pennzoil, maybe?
Oh, man, I don't remember.
That's the one where our friend Kelly drove the car up onto the platform, and they had the video behind it. Their video production is phenomenal. It's worth going to see a few of their videos.
Yeah.
Just go to Vimeo, and you can check those out, Staging Solutions. They're not even a sponsor of the show. We just are friends with them. So.
Well, they did good stuff. It was relevant. Well, I had a whole other tip.
And because they gave us free food and drinks, we talked about them on the show.
That's right. See, it's valuable.
It works.
It's valuable. Yeah. Well, I had another business tip, but it's going to have to wait because we got Ryan Holiday, author of Ego is the Enemy, coming up.
That's up on the way next. We got him on the line waiting for us. You're listening to The Hook. You're listening to The Hook, always online, thehookradio.com, where you can find past episodes, any interviews we did, and also say hi to us. We have that contact form right there if you have any questions. And we always have great guests on because Jason does a really good job of, knowing the right people.
Yeah, well, I try. I try to get out ahead of things. I try to find what's like current trends, and I listen to you guys, the audiences. When you guys are going to thehookradio.com and emailing us, asking questions, giving some input. This is actually our guest today came from those email. One of the requests that I got from a couple folks. We got today with us is Ryan Holiday. He's an American author, marketer, entrepreneur. He's also has been a media strategist and was director of marketing for American Apparel, and is now editor at large for the New York Observer. And he's here to share his new book with us, Ego is the Enemy. Ryan, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I know for a lot of folks who know you kind of have, I don't want to say it's a cult following, but you've got a really strong following of people who know you and have kind of followed your career. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I guess it is. I think in this online era, most people's career starts with a blog or a social media account. You build an audience slowly. It's not like you're suddenly anointed by television or a front-page newspaper article. So I feel like I've sort of grown with an audience.
Yeah. And you started early on, just for some of our listeners who may not be familiar with, but you started early on with a phenomenal internship with Robert Greene, which those of you who don't know is the author of the 48 Laws of Power. Would you say that is kind of what broke you in through some doors for yourself, or?
Yeah. So someone like Robert is, a master of his craft, and I think one of the fastest ways to supercharge your career is to find someone who's really good at what they do and to sort of attach yourself to them and learn everything that you can from them. Because not only are you going to learn skills and a way of thinking and a way of doing things, but you're going to meet other interesting people, and eventually opportunities are going to come from that. And that's definitely what happened for me.
Absolutely. I know one of the interesting things that I guess it was probably off your website, which I found very interesting. There was only one other person I know of that is kind of noted about having pet goats. I got to hear the background story on this. Have you always had a fascination with goats, or is this kind of an accidental, got a pet goat now?
It's not like some weird thing like I'm fascinated with goats. I mean, I live in Texas, and you can do whatever you want in Texas, and we got a pet goat on Craigslist one day, it just happens that goats get very lonely, so then you get a second goat, and then you get a third goat, and the next thing you know, you have goats.
You're a goat farmer.
Exactly. except for none of the benefits of making any money from it or getting any of the milk. We just have pet goats the way that some people have pet dogs, although they don't live in the house.
Well, there you go. Yeah, there's only one other guy that I've seen who kind of broadcasts his goat kind of being his pet, and that's Dan Bilzerian. Have you followed him and his goat issues, his fascination with goats?
Yeah, he does have a goat. And he lives in his mansion in the Hollywood Hills. It's a little less glamorous here, but they are very fun pets. Again, they're like I tell people they're like very stupid dogs.
Nice. I've heard they're extremely loving, though. So
they are, yeah.
Yeah, they kind of take to you. We're talking with Ryan Holiday, author of Ego is the Enemy, and we're going to get to that book in a little bit. But maybe if we start back, was your first book? Am I right? Is it Trust Me, I'm Lying? Because that one was where I first kind of heard of you and started reading up on who Ryan Holiday was. Was that your first kind of big break?
It was definitely my first book, and I think it was up until that point most of the work that I'd done was behind the scenes. And then when you write a book that has not just your name on the cover, but I was on the cover and I look much cooler than I actually do on the cover.
Nice.
It was an expose of the media system, a sort of like a hacker's guide to the media system, and so it ended up being rather controversial and provocative, and it did get a lot of attention.
Yeah, and fill our listeners in a little bit. So what was the background on that? It wasn't just like background on how to hack, but you had actually done it, right?
Yeah, I've worked for a number of controversial clients. I was the director of marketing at American Apparel. You mentioned Dan Bilzerian. I worked for sort of the first Dan Bilzerian of the Internet, which was a guy named Tucker Max, who's also a Texan. I've worked with authors and brands and businesses that sort of create very polarized reactions from people, and our marketing was designed to exploit that. And so I wanted to show the average reader not just how this was done in case they wanted to do it, but also so you could really get a sense of how the stories that you read in the news are created. And hopefully that would change some of your media consumption habits, because the things that we tend to get so outraged about, we never stop and think like, hey, who's benefiting from this outrage? Right,
yeah. And I guess from that you inserted yourself into the media in certain ways, and then were able to kind of reverse engineer and document that out and how it's actually done and what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I did for the book as sort of a joke is that I pretended to be an expert about anything and everything that the media would quote me on. Yeah. And I was in the New York Times as an expert about vinyl records, and I was, on 2020 as a germaphobe, and I was in some Canadian newspaper for boat winterization. A bunch of things that I know nothing about, but I was sort of showing how the media doesn't fact check the way that we think it does, and the way that they really just they have sort of a story that they want to tell, and then they go and find facts and figures and experts that can conform to that, and that when you realize how easily this can be done, it sort of changes your relationship with the news that you read.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So, I find it interesting with all the different things that you have done and you are still doing. How do you define yourself as a professional? Is it kind of like a marketer first? Is it an author first? Is it an influencer? Where do you put yourself?
I don't really think about anything first. As a writer, I like to write about anything and everything that interests me, that I think would be of value to the audience. As an entrepreneur and a business person, I'm looking for where there's opportunities. So as a marketer and now as a consultant and a strategist for brands, I'm trying to take my skills, which is sort of understanding how messaging gets out in the world, how media works, how branding is done, and I'm working with clients as they come to me. But I don't see that in my writing career as necessarily being one is a priority over the other, or that one conflicts with the other. So sort of a little bit of everything. It keeps life interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking with Ryan Holiday, author of Ego is the Enemy, and we're getting to the book. I know everyone's like, I don't want to start emailing in here in a second asking why I'm not getting to the book, but there's just a lot of great stuff here. I'm curious. So did you know early on when you started first interviewing with Robert Greene that you were going to go this route, or was it more of kind of an accidental professional journey that you kind of stumbled into?
Probably a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think I always wanted to be a writer. Not always. I wanted to be a writer, but I wasn't. Honestly, I had no idea how it even worked. I didn't know any writers, and I didn't know how books were made. And
how do you actually get paid for doing that?
Yeah, right. You sort of like, oh, that's a job. And so working with Robert, I sort of learned how publishing worked, and eventually, with Trust Me, I'm Lying, that was my first book, but then it was like, okay, now that this book has worked, I can write about whatever I want now.
Yeah.
And that's where the Obstacles Away came from.
One of the questions I get a lot from folks is kind of like the engineering of marketing or the engineering of writing a book. And I'm curious your take. So would you say that writing a book really is kind of finding a topic and then kind of listening to your heart and your expertise, or is there a real model for success when it comes to kind of outlining and preparing that pitch to the publication or to the publisher?
A lot of authors make the mistake of just sort of, hey, I had this idea for a book, and I'm just going to go make it, and then then after I've made it, then they start to go, and what do I do next?
Right.
And in reality, the best books are sort of developed not with the marketing in mind, but the author is interacting with an audience. They understand who the potential market is for this thing. They've built a platform for themselves in advance, for nonfiction anyway, although I think it's true for fiction. The hardest thing to do is once you have the book and it's done, a month before it's supposed to come out, you go, and how do I get people to hear about this?
Yeah.
That's a very difficult position to put yourself in.
Yeah, I know. I get that probably, and even with business in general, so many people have a great business idea, but so it's, I guess the same applies for writing as it does with any product is like, okay, first either develop or make sure there's a demand for the content that you're creating. Would you say that's fair?
Absolutely. What they say with books is like, who's buying the first 1,000 copies of this thing? If you have a good answer to that, then you know that it's not going to fail completely. It might not be the biggest success in the world, but at least it's going to have been worth the time that you put into it. And so I think if you can have that audience and you can think about it through the creative process, you're much more likely to be successful than if you're writing for yourself.
Absolutely. And I encourage you guys, if you're listening to the show, you can go to thehookradio.com and connect with me, and I'll shoot you out links to Ryan's book. It's just a totally different type of writing style than I think I typically run across, especially like business books, or I don't know, I wouldn't want to call them self-help. I guess that's a good question. So what kind of category do you feel your writings fall into for your books? Because I kind of take them as business because I'm a business-minded guy, but I have a feeling they fall into a lot of different categories for different people depending on where they're coming from at their point in life.
That's an interesting question. I don't know. For the purposes of a bestseller list, you want to be on the business list because that's where it sort of really matters. But from a reading perspective, it's like I like that my books are read by people in the sports world as much as they're read by people in marketing, as much as they're read by people who are just reading because they like good stories.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, if you're writing a book that provides value to people, it doesn't matter so much what category you're in. I guess I would say nonfiction or personal development is probably where I fit the best. Although some of my books are straight marketing and they belong in the business section. When
we come back from our break, we're going to talk with Ryan Holiday about his latest book, Ego is the Enemy. Ryan, you got a few seconds? Can you hang out for a minute with us? Okay.
That's a tough one because I have a big ego, so.
Well, we're going to dig into that, Josh. We're going to psychoanalyze you as soon as we get back from break.
All right. Up next, more of The Hook.
Sailors sail, cowboys ride, lovers love when they get the chance.
We're back on The Hook with a great interview today. Someone that you probably know and have read about and very fascinating. In fact, Jason was very excited about this. I heard about it for the last 3 weeks that you were coming on, Ryan. Very excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, amongst my own interest in the work that you've done, and then, we've got other employees that were like, oh, man, remembering some of the stories, whether it be with Tucker Max or some of the other books that you've written. Everyone was really excited to have you on.
Yeah,
so.
my question is, how many times did you get offended when you were dealing with everything Tucker Max?
I don't get offended. There's a quote from Epictetus, who's a Stoic philosopher, which I actually use in one of my books, and he's saying, when your mind is complicit in taking offense, right? So when someone does something that is offensive. That's you deciding that this hurts you or
Right.
that this is beyond the pale. So I tend to try to accept people for what they are, for what they do, and I think as a marketer, you're learning, hey, this might not be what I like, but there is an audience for it, and my job is to help it reach as big an audience as possible.
My quote is, "There's no such thing as too soon."
That's great, yeah.
There's not. A lot of people are. I hear Joe Rogan say all the time that he was talking about the woman that went to, I guess, South Africa or something like that, and she tweeted about it on the way and saying, "I hope I don't get AIDS." Did you Jason?
Yeah.
You heard about that, right?
Yeah, Justine Sacco.
And then whenever she landed, it was like a total just storm, people coming after her. And Joe Rogan say, look, she can say that if she wants. It's not very funny, but you can say it. It's going to offend people, but, I mean, you have the right to say it and not get fired over it. What are your thoughts? I mean, is it okay to say what you want to say over Twitter and not get in trouble?
What I think people don't realize is that the media system as we have it is designed to get you upset about things, so then you will share it on social media. So the person who's claiming to be outraged by this and writing about it doesn't actually care. And I know a lot of these journalists, right? They see, hey, there is an audience who will be upset by this, and it's my job to connect these two dots. So when you realize just sort of how that system works, you're much less likely to get upset by things.
That makes sense.
Because you realize that it's all sort of an exploitation.
So it's clickbait, that clickbait world.
It's outrage porn is what they call it.
Yes.
Outrage
that is
porn.
perfect.
I love it. Yeah.
That's
and I
really
would
good.
imagine it's either there's an audience who's going to be upset by this, or there'll be an audience of people who are upset that there are people who are upset.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It's like, are you kidding me?
Indifference is not very good for clicks, and so they're trying to sort of get one or the other extreme.
Man, I love that.
I feel like they work more on the tease than they do on the story, though. Oh,
Of course.
It's
you
so
can't
boring
unclick
when
an
you get
article
there.
once you've clicked it, so they don't really care.
It counts whether you enjoyed it or not. Yeah. Well, it's fascinating stuff. We are talking with Ryan Holiday, author of Ego is the Enemy. So let's get into it. I want to maybe you could probably do a better job of giving the audience just a quick glimpse at what Ego is the Enemy is all about. What is this book about?
So the book is about the destructive effects of ego, the way that ego tears apart, our own lives, it tears apart organizations, and it's torn down successful men and women throughout history. There's a quote from Cyril Connolly saying, ego sucks us down like the law of gravity. On the one hand, it brings us up, right? It makes us ambitious and try to do great things, but then it often undermines those very ambitions. And so I wanted to say that actually ego is the enemy of what you're trying to accomplish. It's preventing you from doing what you're trying to do. And if the thing that you are pursuing is already difficult, ego is making it even more so.
One of the things that I found it was just kind of like the biggest discovery for me was that was kind of this understanding that I guess my ego is not my identity.
Right.
Although I feel like I live in that a lot of times, just being honest here, since it's just us three guys talking. Oh, wait. No, I can admit that. Yeah, that it's a difficult kind of battle, right? You're always living up with, okay, how should I be acting, or how do I feel I'm expected to act or to perform or to, do in business versus what do I really want, kind of in my soul.
Well, what's so dangerous about, if your ego or what you do is your identity is that you don't really control it necessarily. So, let's say that you think that your success, the fact that you guys have this radio show, says something about you as people, and that it says that you're better than other people, it says that you're smart, that you're successful, that you're famous, any number of these things. That's great, and you're going to feel good while you have it. But what happens if you move on from the show, or the radio station closes, or, the programming changes, right? Now all of a sudden you don't have it. And so does that mean that you're the opposite of all those things? Is that you're not smart, you're not successful, that nobody likes you? So when we say that success says something about us as people, then at our low moments we feel even worse because we feel that failure or difficulty says something about us as people. And in reality, neither of these things say anything.
Wow.
Have you ever met anybody in radio before? And evidently you have.
Yeah, I'm sure it's rampant in this industry. For
Anybody
sure.
with a huge ego in radio?
Well, it's rampant in any industry.
Well, that's
the
true.
idea
Yeah.
that, hey, someone should read my books. there's a certain amount of ego there. The idea that says, hey, I'm the best boxer that ever lived, or I'm the fastest runner that ever lived. These are ambitious goals, but you have to be able to separate what you're pursuing from sort of who you are as a person, I think.
That's interesting. So how have you been able to balance that? I mean, because you're promoting a book, but I guess do you take it away from yourself and more of the topic? How do you feel yourself kind of balancing that?
Yeah, I was just reading this book about Winston Churchill, and he had a great line. He was saying, anytime there's a big turnout for one of my speeches, he says, I remind myself that there'd be twice as many people there if I was being hanged. And so you sort of have to remind yourself that this is all kind of ephemeral and temporary, and that they like what you're providing, but they don't know you, and this really says nothing about you, and that it's about the work that you do and the things that your work is based on that matter, and that can sort of humble you a little bit. And then you always want to say, like, look, there's always more that you could do, and so instead of being satisfied or content that you've already done it, why don't you focus instead on the ways that you could improve? And
really, the hardest part for some people is that they want to always be relevant. Mm-hmm. And you can't you see this in celebrities all the time.
Really what you're saying too, Ryan, is so there's a place for that ego, I guess, but it's knowing its place and maybe controlling or manipulating it for yourself rather than leaning on it to carry you through.
Yeah, it's making sure that it doesn't rule your life, I think, is what you want. That you're not making important decisions out of ego.
That you're not chasing the dragon almost?
Exactly, because it does. It can become sort of an addiction.
I just feel like, this was probably a self-discovery book for yourself. I mean, I would imagine has this changed the way that you do your marketing, or is this kind of a mantra that you've had all along?
It's a little of both. I mean, I think we all suffer from ego, and I certainly put myself in that category, and I was writing a book that I thought I needed as well as other people. But I think as a marketer, you always have to be aware that, you're selling an idealized version of your product. And when that product is yourself, it doesn't change. It's still true. And so you can't believe your own hype.
A lot of times I feel like since we have so much technology and social media, that you have someone that does something like the lady. I mean, this is just an example that ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah,
so
sure.
They make her into this huge star on social media, and I mean, she is everywhere. But you get a little glimpse of that, and it probably happened to the Chewbacca mom. I mean, she's still going through that. You get a little bit of some kind of fame, and people are all over you, and you want to keep that going. Well, how do you stay in the eye of the public? Do you want it? Because once you get it, I mean, it's that drug that you're always going to want to keep going and going and going, and so you start doing stupid things to get that.
Yeah, look, I think success is always better when it comes slowly because you can adjust to it. It doesn't, it doesn't overwhelm you or change your life so substantially. But yeah, people get a taste of it, and then they have to do increasingly desperate things to keep it, rather than say focusing on the work, on practicing your music or writing your screenplays or building your business, whatever it is. I think if you can focus on the work, you're going to have less ego than if, hey, it's about me doing ridiculous things to get attention on the internet. That's harder to suppress that ego because there's not a craft in between you and your audience.
And then there's somebody like Dave Grohl of the Foo Fighters, who was with Nirvana and actually has been with the Foo Fighters even longer and does crazy, silly things that are funny to everybody. But one thing that I found interesting whenever watching their documentary is he said, hey, look, at the end of the night, after I sign autographs and meet everybody I have to meet, I got to go home. I can't stay out drinking all night because guess who's getting up in the morning and making eggs and toast for his kids? That's me. I got to wake up when they wake up. I'm an everyday dude. I have to do those things to keep my sanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. But also, as a musician, like what he does is extraordinarily hard. So he can't ever let up. It's like, you can have the biggest ego in the world, but that doesn't help you on the court, and it doesn't help you when you're behind the drum set or in front of a microphone. Like it's a lot of work, and so that having that inherently, if you're dedicated to the craft, it keeps you humble.
So what's your recommendation, or what's your view on how do you, so for those that have kind of a life, professional successes and personal successes? I mean, I guess you don't bottle them up, right? I mean, so do you enjoy or celebrate those at the time? But
yeah, you appreciate them and you're grateful for them, but you don't let them change how you see yourself and how you see the world around you. And then you get back to work.
Stay grounded.
Yeah.
The thing you could do is that you get some goats and you let them live with you.
Well, sure. Look, my goats don't care how many books I've sold. They
That's
just
true.
care if I brought the hay in the morning.
Yeah, and with my kids, it's like my kids and I are riding around. They'll hear a commercial that I did, and they're like, "Oh, it's Daddy on the radio." But I got to go potty.
Right.
yeah,
They could care less. Kids are the greatest to keep you grounded because they don't care what you do, who you are. In the morning, whenever you say, "Hurry up, I got meetings to go to," they're like, "Yeah, but I don't feel like getting dressed right now, so you're gonna have to slow down, partner."
Yeah. Yeah, they don't seem to tune in on the importance of what you have on your schedule and how important you are in your meetings and all that kind of stuff.
I think someone like Dave Grohl is good to look at, though, because he's had such a long time in the eye of the public, and there's so many people. You look at Scott Weiland or Lane Staley or these other artists that have gone on and just couldn't handle. Even Kurt Cobain couldn't handle that pressure, couldn't handle being in the media
or the post-fame depression that you see all the time. I mean, I guess it's a huge part of this too.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, at the end of the day, you got to go home with yourself, and so you got to focus on being honest and authentic and real about that.
Man, we're talking with Ryan Holiday, author of Ego is the Enemy. So I know you said you got a new book coming up. Is that something you're working on? Have you announced it yet? What's any teasers here?
I haven't announced it yet, but I'm doing a book on that'll be a sort of a continuation of Stoicism, which is one of the themes I talk about in my book, and it's a book you read one page a day. It's called The Daily Stoic.
Oh,
I like that.
How many pages are we talking?
I don't know how many pages total, but it's 366 sort of meditations that you read, and then there's an intro and a conclusion and all of that.
Do you find that that in these days that people they want to have something to hold in their hands whenever they have a book now, or are they doing it more online?
Personally, I love physical books, and that's all that I read as a reader and a book lover. But I sort of want to meet the reader wherever they are. So I love that some people love audiobooks. I love some people that like ebooks, and some people only watch YouTube videos. But as long as you're interacting with the thing that I spent a lot of time making, that means something to me.
So you're the kind of guy that's bummed out that Maxim magazine or those magazines they don't produce actually hard copies of it anymore.
I'm not that sad that Maxim magazine doesn't exist, but I do love books, and I'm
just
sad
an
to see
example.
bookstores disappearing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're doing continuing writing all the time with your blog. And what's the best way for people to get in touch and follow you and stay on your journey?
Yeah, you can find all my stuff at ryanholiday.net, or you can follow me at ryanholiday on Twitter.
Fantastic. Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for being on with us today on The Hook. That's Ryan Holiday, which is far too famous to actually be on our show.
Thank you guys for having me.
We appreciate it, and thanks for listening this week to The Hook. We'll be back next week.